Hey, Chris Liepe here with a special treat. We've got Britta Görtz, extreme vocalist, longtime vocal coach, and I get to interview her here on the channel. She's had a huge history of being very aggressive, teaching people how to do this, and has some amazing language and perspectives to go along with it. And as you guys who are into aggressive vocalists have been studying my channel, don't miss this advice. Don't miss these tips. In this video, we're going to learn, according to Britta, how to scream, how to sing with distortion. Hey, Britta.
Hey, Chris, what's up? Well, thank you so much for the super nice introduction.
Before we go much further, if you like what you hear in this video and some of the tips that you get, she's got a course coming out. Click the link below to get on the waiting list for this course, and you'll get an email as soon as it's released. Okay, so how you learned to scream.
It's so long ago. I think it's like something like 18, 19, 20 years ago when I picked up a microphone and screamed into it when I joined a thrash metal band, the thrash metal band Liepe that I was in for a very, very long time. And like, we didn't have any, like, we didn't even have YouTube tutorials or something like that. And so like, I made every possible mistake one could make on my journey in how to learn how to scream. And this is exactly like what got me interested into like finding out how you actually do that and what's going on anatomically. So yeah, that's I really learned from my mistakes.
You learned from failure. You turned failure into discovery. And,
yes.
and introspectively grabbed those failures and went, how does that feel? That feels interesting. And then leaning into that.
And then, of course, like in exchange, like with other singers, I learned a lot and I picked up a little bit up here and there. But like the thing for me was when I discovered what is going on in the anatomy of it. And it was so interesting that, I don't know, I just kind of like, it was like a smoother ride from that moment on when I understood what is actually going on.
So the what's going on was the moment for you. Speaking of what's going on, what would you say to the term fry screaming? Hey, that's a fry scream. No, it's not. That's a false chord scream. No, that's a fry scream. And there's this argument that goes on, I think, even with experienced vocalists. What's your take on those terms and how that fits with what's really going on and how you feel things in your own voice?
I get confronted with this question a lot, like, Britta, what do you think? Like, is this singer singing in fry or is that false chord or whatever? One thing first, like when I learned how to do it, I was just like going by sound, and I lived and sung happily before I even knew that the term fry ever existed. So like, it's really like a terminology. Fry is a word that when I look at it, it doesn't mean just the one thing.
Right.
So we have one word for like different kinds of fry. It's like a fry family, I would say. So everything that sounds, because fry to me is a sound, it's like has to do with like putting something really tasty into boiling oil, the sound that it makes. So everything that has the more like finer, lighter distortion characteristics that is at the same time produced with not a lot of airflow going on.
Got it.
Speaking like you can hold the tone very long. This is what I call a fry.
So kind of like the word flower, right? Like it means slightly different things to different people depending on what you're visualizing in your head.
Yes, exactly. And also like I got to know like so many different voices throughout my teachings and my workshops that I find for some people it's easier to go and lean into this kind of fry. Some are like from the whole posture and the placement that they do naturally in their voice, and I try to work with that to like have an easier entrance to this whole distortion thing going on.
Okay, so fry is a descriptor word, or a descriptor word that stands for a family of sounds, like you're saying.
Yes.
Square that with the term false chord.
Well, false chord is a term that describes a part in our throat. And it's also used as a terminology for a singing style. But like for me, that doesn't necessarily mean that the false chords as a body part are only active in the false chord technique. Because like when you sing in like a mixed voice, like a false chord engagement can add a lot of like grit and heaviness to your fry sound.
So your false chords can be part of a fry engagement. Your fry sound can be part of a false chord engagement because false chords, you're describing anatomy there. When you're saying the word fry, you're not talking about a particular part of your anatomy. And as a matter of fact, you get a fry sound from false chord engagement, but you could also get it with no false chord engagement. Vocal fry, according to an ear, nose, and throat specialist, right, is simply it's like your most disengaged vocal resonance, right? The loose, flappy vocal cords. And I think some people, if they think about, well, wait, fry and screaming, how do I make that? And I mean, that's a quiet frog imitation. How do I make that into something usable?
Yeah, but it's also like, imagine you're teaching a baby on how to stand and how to walk. Like the route to go to be a pro athlete and succeed in the Olympics in running is a long path. So like, it's not just that you make something faster to make something more smooth and like useful. So there's a lot more going on, and like the whole body needs to be in a certain kind of state to achieve certain kinds of sounds. So like, I think if for some people it is a good way to approach the whole fry thing with like the grudge sound, the sound that you just made, like, oh, it's a good thing. For some, it's confusing because like the fry vocals, like, yeah, it feels completely different than, oh. They both belong in the fry family, but it's not just making something louder. Louder to me is just like giving more air into it and trying to reach someone in a far distance. And that's not the right projection. It has a lot to do with like a placement that you can play around with, and also like with the projection and compression. That is a really, really big topic that I talk to my students a lot about, because like there's also this open throat thing, and that is kind of like the opposite of like a good compression. And as a metal vocalist, as a harsh vocalist, you need to have good control of your compression and what you're doing with that. Describe
the transition, how it should feel when you go from that sort of clinical definition of fry to the more engaged upper throat, false chord, compressed sensation. Describe how one might get that transition.
Well, there are different kind of paths that you can walk on, but one thing that works well for many is like, I imagine to be like an old guy. So this actually is like it's like a grandpa that one of my students has, and he's like, when I talk like that, I sound like my grandpa. And it's not like a whisper in terms of, it's more like an engaged whisper that also leans a little bit more into the front. So when you think of like having your frontal part engaged in the sound, like as a resonance room favored compared to the back part, like
yes,
that would be front. So this is where it's way easier to project that into. And then some people also say like, when you lift something heavy.
When you lift something heavy, yeah. And so if an old man lifts something heavy, you've got that.
Yeah, or like some people even like when they do something in the bathroom. So this is like everything. So I think that every person who is able to speak has probably made one or the other fry sound already, but just is not aware of that. So I try to pay attention to my students, and I encourage them to pay attention to whenever they are lifting something heavy, when they are like laughing for a long time, and at the end it's just like
right.
where these little creaks come out. This is something that is very useful to find the right placement and to go from there. So, but yeah, with this like kind of like old guy speaking, just like the grandpa of, I don't know, like Homer Simpson, is that the grandpa?
Yeah, right, sure.
Speaking like that, yeah. That's very, very, very near and close to the fry. And then when you mix in way more of the grandpa and just a little bit of the sensation, you end up maybe with something like but for me it feels like it's way more than
Very, very cool. That's awesome. So take us from there, from that. This is not musical. What we've done so far is not musical at all. But if we go from these, gateway sounds to making a note, to actually singing with it, how can we start to develop those sensations?
Always try to achieve a certain kind of way how to sing in a clean way, that we have a good layer, that we have a good just a good path to build upon our distortion. So when you sing, sometimes when you sing very melodic, you work a lot with like a different breathing support, so that you have like a something like that, maybe very soft. Mm-hmm. But especially for the fry sounds, something very annoying and monotonous is a way better layer to add those sounds in. So you want to keep your breathing support rather pretty engaged, and then maybe like think of something like this, so it's very monotonous in the beginning and it's very continuous, and then take away all the consonants from what you want to sing, because we can sing vowels, we cannot sing k. That's not something that we can really sing. So when you want to sing something, like in my course, there's actually an example song that you can learn with and sing along to. So there's a line that goes cavernous into darkness. So cavernous into darkness, and when I take all the consonants away, it's like and then I tried to sing that on a fry. Cavernous! But I rely a lot on the vowels underneath it, so I don't get too distracted by all the consonants. And sometimes when you sing consonants that are produced in the back of your mouth, it throws you off. So just leave them away and start with something like that.
It cuts your airflow and directs your placement to the back when you want to be keeping it forward. That's why That's why that works. So cavernous, cavernous, man, cavernous, and then maybe bring it up so I can have a bit more compression easier.
Exactly.
It's very good.
And no one should be ashamed or afraid to just try that out, because we all sounded like that when we started. And to learn from people who can do that can be very weird, because you hear all these sounds that work so well, but failure is 80%, 90% of the process.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you for doing this, for giving us wisdom and practical things to try to work this stuff into our voices. Again, if you want more from Britta, click that link below and join the waiting list for the course. I've seen some of the course, and I'm going to be going through the whole thing. It's going to help reinforce some things that I've been working on, and it's also going to help me learn to internalize some new things that I've had trouble with. But more on that in another video. We'll see you for more.